This is the TK Radio Network.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
Saddam Hussein has gone to elaborate lengths, spent enormous sums, taken great risks to build and keep weapons of mass destruction.
Did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
What difference at this point does it make? Does it make? Does it make?
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Well, here we are on Trust But Verify. Thursday night, 9 p.m. in the nation's capital. Paul, that'd be 8 p.m. in Bigfoot, Texas. You ever been there?
Yes, sir. Have not, but
Yes.
yeah, Bigfoot's pretty much everywhere in Texas.
Yeah, they are. You know, you've probably been by it. It's south of San Antonio on the way to Laredo. It's kind of a cool place. It's named after, Angie, you need to know this if you're going to move to Texas.
Okay.
It's named after a famous Texas Ranger, William Bigfoot Wallace. Get that last name. He's a descendant of Scottish Highlanders. The only reason he came here, he was living in Virginia, and Santa Ana had a Goliad massacre, which we all know about in Texas, where they took a bunch of people out, Texicans, and shot them. Anyway, he lost a cousin and a brother and decided to come to Texas and clean up a little old-fashioned Scottish family payback, and he stayed. So anyway, Goliad, Texas. I actually had an uncle that was spared by the Mexican troops in Goliad because he was a gunsmith. Anyway, enough about Texas and me. Well, is everybody better? I mean, I felt horrible last week.
I was fine. I was out on a hot date with my twin sister wife.
Oh, man.
I know.
I didn't know about that. I guess it was just me. I thought everybody was sick. They have a thing called cedar fever down here. I don't know if it's anywhere else, but when you can actually see the stuff blowing off the trees, you know, and occluding the sun, it's pretty bad. I don't know. I know Dallas has had a bunch of it, Paul. I know you guys.
Oh yeah, my eyes are on fire for the last week.
Yeah, it's horrible. And Jones really, you know, she has to deal with that stuff all the time. So we have all these machines in our house that are designed to do different things, which is take anything out of the air, essentially, that God put there. And, you know, it's about the only way a lot of people can survive anymore, especially this year. Well, Angie, I heard a rumor that you're going to give us a little tour through the deep woods of the Constitutional Foundation for those evil executive orders we've been reading about and hearing about so much this week. So are you ready to school Marmas? And Paul and I are definitely willing to learn.
I wouldn't exactly call myself an authority. It's just sort of maddening when you hear these people, you know, they don't seem to have any comprehension of what an executive order is. And, you know, he's becoming a dictator and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, executive orders are something that the president uses as a tool to direct his departments on how to conduct business within the executive branch. They have to cite within the executive order where it's constitutional. Where do they have the constitutional authority to do X, Y, and Z that is written in the order, and they are numbered. Mr. Obama, as president, when that wasn't working out very well for him, he decided that because he was being called on it and he couldn't cite the constitutionality of his orders, and they also were tracking the cost of each executive order. So what he went and did was went over to executive memorandums, and they aren't numbered. They didn't track cost on them, and they don't have to cite the constitutionality of them. So what Mr. Trump is doing, and if you read various places, he's sort of making stuff up as he goes along. There was one site, I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but it went on to say something to the effect of he made up his own new thing. Vague. It was something to do with national security. It was an executive order of national security, and it's like, that's a new one that didn't even exist. He's just making them up as he goes. My point being is when they say that he's doing these things and he's ruling as a dictator and he has no authority, he has to have the authority in order to create an executive order. So, and then people don't seem to he's not circumventing Congress. That's not what these are. He doesn't have the ability to do that. And if he were, Congress could immediately write a law and say, nope, you can't do that. So, and the only way to overturn previous executive orders is with another executive order. So all he's really doing in many cases, and I really detest that I have to defend Donald Trump. Well, by the way, I'll get to this in a minute, but it's been entertaining. But I hate that I have to defend Donald Trump, but he's not circumventing Congress when he's doing these things. He's doing constitutionally what he needs to do to turn back what Barack Obama did. With so many of these different things, everything from he signed a proclamation having to do with school choice. He signed an executive order with border security that we know about. He did enhance safety in the interior of the United States. He did, obviously the immigration one, which is absolutely within his constitutional authority to do. So, anyways, executive orders are not evil. They are not the work of somebody trying to do anything to get around Congress. He's not going it on his own. He's not doing anything like that. It's not more of the same. It's only more of the same because he has to go back with the executive order. So, Thirsty Warrior says, Ange, unlike when Obama circumvented the Constitution with his executive orders, which is why I said, Thirsty Warrior, he went from executive orders to executive memorandums because they aren't tracked. He doesn't have to cite the Constitution, and they didn't track the money. They finally, in 2015, Congress decided to start tracking how much his executive memos were costing people to implement in the country and the individuals, but only over $100 million per executive memo. They didn't track anything under that. So, anyways.
That's just $100 million.
Oh, yeah. $100 million here, $100 million there.
Got that in my dresser somewhere. I think it's in my sock drawer. If I hope I can find it after the show. Now it's got me worried.
We have $100 million in small bills, so we just use it as the mattress.
I remember my dad telling me, my foster dad telling me when I was a kid, he told me a lot of things, kind of discouraged me about life. One of them, we used to have jets flying over from a nearby air base, and he said, "Boy, you'll never be able to fly one of those because you stink at math." I said, "Well, darn." Well, it turns out I actually ended up with 2 sets of flight wings and still stink at math. But the whole thing is,
weren't you flying a prop?
I flew jets first, and then
did you? Okay.
Turboprop.
Did not know that.
Yeah, it's but anyway, to get through, 2 sets of flight wings, you do have to be able to figure out how much fuel you have left. I noticed on one flight that was a little more important than I noticed on some of the others. But it's not like you have to know all that stuff. Well, look, there are a lot of executive orders. I mean, they cover the waterfront.
I have to jump in because Uncle Dave just coined a phrase talking about the $100 million here, $100 million there. He called it Trump change. Anyways.
Hey, listen, we're getting pretty excited here in Texas about the fact he's going to invade Mexico. I mean, we've been waiting on that since, I don't know, 1860s, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, it'll be I think it'll be the third time we went in there. 1848. Then we went after Pancho Villa in the 1910, 1914.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Right before World War I. We've got an interventionist history with Mexico.
Well,
we need to do a George Bush Jr. and go a little bit beyond what George Sr. did and just go ahead and just take the whole thing because there's some pretty good beachfront property down there.
Well, he's got to invade Chicago first, though.
They may just cut Chicago out.
Oh, yeah.
That one may be a little bit beyond executive authority, just saying. So.
Can't we just cede it to Canada?
No, we'll cede it to California when they break away.
Yeah.
Either
that or it'll be a seaborne assault from Lake Michigan.
Well, I was reading something, Angie, about, you mentioned this, that, you can change executive orders, changing meaning you get rid of them, revoke them, modify them, whatever. The president has to do that. Congress now, if it's an executive order that's based on congressional law, and let's just say the president, in his best judgment, thought that he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, Congress can still come in, like you said, with the law and say, no, you can't do that. But, there have been executive orders taken to the Supreme Court or actually all the way up to the Supreme Court. But I was looking at a fact and a factoid here. Only 17% of those cases were ever resolved against a presidential order. So, you got pretty 8-2 odds there.
Right. It's a very high bar to sort of establish that because he's the executive, and he does have a lot of latitude because, interestingly, the Constitution doesn't actually define what the executive authority is. It doesn't, right. So it gives a sort of a wide berth for the president to sort of go, okay, well, we can cite this within the Constitution. So, as long as he can cite something legitimately, the executive order will essentially stand. But then again, going to Barack Obama, he used more presidential memorandums than almost anybody because he couldn't get by with the executive orders. There's actually several different things that the executive can issue. They can issue proclamations, which usually have to do with foreign entities and trade and so on. There's executive orders, presidential memorandums, presidential notices, presidential determinations, and notices and determinations usually do require Congress. They're required by Congress to be specific on issues. So if you want to sort of do whatever, you need that memorandum. If you want to do it, incite your constitutional authority, you use the executive order. But Barack Obama set the precedent on all of this stuff. All of it. Every single last bit of it. He did this. So suck it.
So you haven't been turned over. You remember? I can't remember. You may be able to recall this, Angie, but I know Roosevelt had some overturned. I think Truman may have had, this is war power, so Truman may have had some overturned too.
We do know that Roosevelt tried to stack the Supreme Court because he was getting challenges left and right for his New Deal. And the New Deal was an interesting one, too, because he went to Congress when he was first in office, and he said, I need sweeping authority because we're in a crisis. And they said, okay, and they gave it to him within like an hour. And then what he did was in the time of crisis situation, it used to be how we dealt with foreigners and foreign entities, and he turned it around and made it for the first time about the president can directly do things to the American people. So it's from that point on, it's basically been abused from Roosevelt on down. And Congress ultimately did do what they could to write laws and send things to the Supreme Court. And as we know, they were going to the Supreme Court, and he was afraid he was going to lose, and that's why he wanted to stack the Supreme Court.
A Thirsty Warrior brought up, he said, Ange, George Washington defined the powerful executive. Every president since him expanded upon that precedent. It'd be pretty hard to argue with that comment.
Oh, yeah.
He said started there, and actually he didn't have that many. I think he had 8 or something like that.
And it was a new administration, so.
Right, and Truman, now remember, Truman was going to nationalize the steel industry.
Right.
They decided they were going to strike or something. I believe that was the case. Truman said, well, we'll just take you over. And I said, no, you're not going to do that.
Yeah, right.
We're not going down that road, dude. I don't care if there's a war going on or not. But
Stalin would be jealous.
Everything's happened. Presidents have done everything from, a lot of us, I know Thirsty Warrior knows this one, pardoning Vietnam War draft evaders. The peanut farmer did that one. Yep. But then you have things like giving federal workers the right to bargain collectively, and there's all kinds of stuff, drug-free workplace, and moving troops around. That's another one. The Marine Corps is called the president's own. Hatch knows what that's all about. Maybe a lot of other people do too, but essentially, the president can send the Marine Corps just about anywhere he wants to. He doesn't have to have permission from anywhere. That's why, we're a force in readiness. But, moving people out of the reserves, for example, like I think Clinton did that. You remember during the war against the good President Milosevic? He pulled in there.
Oh, yeah.
Bosnia,
yeah. And so, there's a lot of probably been some horrible ones, and there have probably just been most of them are just mundane, like you were saying, Angie. It's like I'm the president. You pass laws. My job is to make this stuff happen. Yeah. I'm an administrator. It's called the executive branch for a reason.
Right, and that's exactly. We have somebody to execute the laws that are passed by the legislative branch. That's precisely what the role is. And, but it's just... People are so belligerent in their ignorance. They are belligerently ignorant because they are so married to the notion that they understand. But, you ask them, okay, well, what about A, B, and C? And have you read this? And did you actually read Clause 2? And no, they haven't. So it's just was driving me nuts all week long. It's just your
I'd
profound ignorance is killing me. I can't talk to you anymore. So.
Yeah, well, I get that way sometimes when I'm talking to myself normally. But,
not you.
Yeah, it's rough on some days. Listen, if someone were to say or to ask this question, and I don't put you on the spot because it's kind of a tough question, how do I judge an executive order? If I see a president that's just signed an executive order and I read about it or see it on the news, how would I, as a citizen, know or have any way to even kind of work my way through the process of figuring out, hey, did he do that through his power, constitutional power in the divestiture clause, or a law, was passed and he's doing it for? How would I know that?
Well, there's a registry for the executive orders. There's a registry, and they're numbered, so you can go in and you can see, on this one, and within the executive orders on the registry, he has to cite what constitutional authority he has to do X, Y, and Z.
But they don't always do that. It's not required at least what I read, and of course I'm trying to catch up with you when I'm doing this research. But I read that they don't always cite the constitutional authority for it, and I know they don't in the other ones.
In the memos, they don't. They're supposed to, and this was actually something that the first couple years. You may recall when we were all about read the bill, and then it was like, okay, well, if we do any executive orders, it goes into the registry, just to give you a little bit of, just spark something. It goes into the registry, and then it is executed in 30 days. So once it's put in there, there's that 30 days, and I guess there's that time to review it. But I don't know who has the authority to say, no, you really can't do that, aside from Congress, who would have to write a new law and pass it within those 30 days to block him.
Which would be a difficult task if the president had. He wouldn't even have to have a majority of his own people in both houses. He just have to have, veto pen and enough people of his party to keep him from getting, the 2/3 majority. Is
right.
It is 2/3 override.
Well,
so
yeah. And that's what was happening in the first 2 years of the Obama administration. He got away with absolutely everything because they had such a majority in both houses of Congress. And, he walked in. The stunning arrogance of that man, you may recall stuff like when he walked into Congress and it said, you need to hold the line. You need to, make sure you're out there pushing for me. And like, well, what if that doesn't work at home? What if I need help at home? What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you have me. You just mentioned my name. And he said these things to Congress. And when they were trying to get the Olympics to go to Chicago, they jumped on a plane, ran over there to the Olympic Committee and said, you should have the Olympics in Chicago because Barack Obama lived there. I mean, literally, these are the things he said. So his stunning arrogance the first couple of years, I mean, he just got so much stuff passed. So, and then
kind of started off with when they gave him the Nobel Prize for showing up.
Yeah.
Not missing. Yeah, not.
Yeah, they got to be regretting that one now. Yeah.
Nobody talks about it though.
one bomb every 28 minutes over 8 years. Come on. Yeah, I mean that's peace for you.
Paul, it could be worse. Just think of it.
It could be, maybe.
Well, Truman did something that a lot of people don't know this or maybe we've forgotten, but he had something called loyalty review boards, and he used those to get rid of civilian employees, and they were based on whether or not that person had been disloyal during the war. So,
well, this was also at a time when they were fearing Nazis and they were fearing communism and this and that. So Truman got away with things that you probably, there's no way because we'd be like having Berkeley students setting their campus on fire. But he got away with a lot of stuff because everything was with the Red Scare was in full effect right after World War II. Yeah. I just found something I was looking for, Angie, on these people, this presidential executive orders when they're trying to not be put in a box and have to explain the justification. Here's an executive order. Here's an executive order which prohibits discrimination in federal employment. It just simply stated, under and by virtue of the authority vested in me as President of the United States by the Constitution and statutes of the United States, it is ordered as follows. And that's
that's as deep as that person got in, justifying their actions. So.
Well, and also with Barack Obama's first executive order when he got into office, his first official executive order was to basically say that he doesn't have to release any documentation about himself. So
exactly.
Where does it give him the authority to do that? But again, it really depends on who you've got in your Congress and who's out there. Everybody was in Obama love at the time. So there's all, it depends on what's going on at the time. There's one president can get away with one thing, and then a few years later, the same thing is not going to fly very well. I mean, and just for the sake of discussion, why can Donald Trump not sign that same thing about his taxes? So what flies for one usually doesn't fly for another. Why can't Donald Trump say by the authority vested in me, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to release my taxes to you people? Well, he's not signed an order, but that's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, and he's not legally obligated to release those, regardless. Right. I mean, that's traditional, not
right.
legal.
I think it should be. I don't know. I would have to actually look this up. I remember we looked it up at the time. I just don't recall. I think it pretty much should be required for you to provide a legitimate birth certificate and a few other things. Just saying.
Well, I agree, and I think with President Trump, and I don't make excuses for him, but we know anything he does is under a microscope. So you can just imagine reporters poring over his tax returns and you talk about fake news coming out of, one page or another. He'd have to deal with all that. It would derail him. Now, that's my perspective, and it's I only hold that because it's based on what I'm seeing so far, because literally everything he does is...
Hey, Skipper, just a thought on his whole tax return thing. Has it occurred to anybody that it's entirely plausible that what he's trying to do is recreate the Obama birth certificate controversy for himself, because the birth certificate controversy was wildly beneficial to Obama.
Yeah, anytime anybody disagreed with him, we were either racist or it was about his birth certificate. And most of us actually didn't care about the birth certificate. They kept it alive. They kept bringing it up again and again and again. And Sparky's always been of the mind that he had it in the top drawer of the Resolute desk. And every time, he needed, he just kind of took it out and smiled every time anytime he caused turmoil anywhere.
It's possible. The difference is we don't have the megaphone that he had to, attack it.
I don't see the advantage of him having that. I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but what would be the advantage of him? I just don't think it gets the same play as the birth certificate.
Oh, you're talking the taxes? Oh, who cares, really? I mean, and I didn't care when Harry Reid brought it up about Romney. I simply didn't care. Yep, he's rich. Yep, he's going to take every tax advantage he can. That's what people do. It's a capitalist society. It's human nature. It doesn't really. I don't care. The birth certificate was I personally, I never thought that Barack Obama wasn't born in this country. And even if he was born in Kenya, he still had an American parent, so he's still an American. So, and by the way, I read that as well in the immigration nationalization stuff at the time. So it wasn't that hard to find. Anyway, so the birth certificate thing, it was something Obama thrived on the controversy because he needed to deflect and he needed to point at all of us and call us haters and this and that and just divide the country at every opportunity. And the birth certificate was easy pickings.
Yeah, that's probably true. Well, let's shift gears. You did a masterful job of getting us through that and not confusing me anyway, which is, I have to tell you, a yeoman's job. But a lot of big words
than all
there,
of us
Angie.
put together.
And I was looking at stuff that had 3 or 4 paragraphs and commas, and I was trying to sort my way through that. It's not easy for a Texas boy. I want to talk about something that's happening in Texas, only because it could set a precedent. Our governor, who for the most part, I think the world of him, Governor Greg Abbott. Mm-hmm. He's in a urinating contest with a sheriff from Travis County, which unfortunately for him, it's a county that the capital's located at. And she's saying, I'm not going to necessarily cooperate. I'm not going to become a sheriff's department, and our jail is not going to become an arm of federal ICE. And, I'll turn over certain kinds of people, murderers and, aggressive. I've got a list of what she's agreed to do. And anyway, she put her foot down, put her boot down, I guess, as we say in Texas. And Abbott says, well, I'm going to take $2 million away from your crime fund that the state sends you. And also, I'm going to ask the legislature to give me the authority to remove you as sheriff of Travis County. Now, let me tell you, in Texas, we take our sheriffs pretty seriously in that they actually stand between us and the state and us and the federal government. And I don't know how the Texas Association of Sheriffs is going to feel about this. But to me, this is, I think I mentioned this to you, Angie, this isn't a slippery slope. This is a perpendicular cliff.
Yeah.
This goes through. So I don't know, Paul, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think one thing we need to clarify first for the non-Texans out there, which is probably most of our listeners, is Travis County is right behind San Francisco on the wacky scale. It is like no place else in Texas. Not like Houston, not like Dallas, which are both fairly liberal because they're large urban areas, unlike San Antonio. It is like a hippie enclave right in the middle of, deep red conservative land. I think that's a lot of the issue. And Travis County government in general has a history of, resisting, the state level, at least since Ann Richards, our last Democratic governor. And they dig their feet in on most anything. Personally, I think, while I don't agree with the sheriff's politics, I'm with you. This is dangerous. This is a bad, bad thing to take that power away because as you say, the sheriff in the state of Texas is beholden to nobody but the voters.
Well, here's the thing. As a non-Texan, and as I said to Skipper, this sort of goes against as a future Texan. This goes against my limited government interference sensibilities. This just goes counter to everything that I believe as somebody that is as a conservative. It doesn't matter if it's not about the politics. It's a terrible precedent. And, from Greg Abbott, who I admire tremendously, this is actually kind of surprising. I can see that it could maybe be a frustration situation, but this is not how you deal with it. And Skipper, you had mentioned, he could arrest her. He could do this, that, or the other thing. It doesn't matter what her politics are. It doesn't matter if they have a history of this. They are an elected official. And it's not just the sheriffs. It's any elected official. You can't just have the authority as the governor or the president or whatever to become a dictator and say, well, you're elected by the people, but you're not doing what I want. So I'm going to remove you from office. That's just not acceptable.
Well, he's got his, he's got his back up on this deal because he wants to sort of emulate. Not that he wasn't kind of doing what Trump's doing from the very beginning. He's been standing up to liberals in Texas for a while, but I think he's emboldened, as probably a lot of people are. But here's an issue I have. Yeah, sure. Well, here's an issue I have. You'll have to, you temporary East Coast people will have to tell me, was it New York where the sheriffs just stood up out in rural New York and to those new gun laws and said, it ain't happening. We are not going to enforce those laws because they're not constitutional. Am I right? Was that Connecticut? Was that New York?
No, it was New York State. It was New York State, and it was stuff like they didn't put. It was like the bullet thing, the limiting of 7 bullets, even for cops in their guns, and it was just a whole slew of things that were just absurd, and they weren't going to accomplish anything.
Exactly, and that's my point, Angie. Because what if the governor of New York just said, "Okay, I'm going to remove all you sheriffs." And we'll get somebody in there that'll go along with it. We just lost, you lost something really important, and that demonstrated it better than anything I can think of.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, the governor shouldn't have that. Unfortunately for Greg Abbott, he's even his $2 million he's going to take away probably isn't going to work for him, because the way that money is allocated, it isn't allocated to the sheriff. It's actually it's allocated to veterans courts and I think victims funds.
Oh, that's terrible.
Women and children and stuff like that. So he's going to lose the PR war on that one for sure.
Would this rise to the level of her breaking the law?
No, she's not breaking any laws. I mean, they have to create a law. Here's what he's saying. Essentially, here's what has to happen if he's going to get rid of her. I made a little note on this. They're going to have to change the local government code in state law to stipulate that all the sheriffs have to honor ICE requests. I don't think that's going to fly, because they're telling county sheriffs, state elected representatives, that they have to honor a federal law, and I don't think state has the authority to tell people that they have to honor a federal law. But that's my understanding. Other people will see it differently.
I think it depends on the law, because there's supremacy on certain laws, and I think immigration is one of them. And this is why Arizona couldn't do its own border stuff, and it couldn't do its this, that, and the other thing. So the states do have to acquiesce on certain things.
There's a caveat to that, though.
Oh, I know.
With what you were saying with the supremacy clause, that means that the law of the federal government is above that of the states, but that doesn't mean that the states have to enforce federal law.
But he, as the Texas governor who doesn't control the sheriffs, is saying he wants it enforced.
Then he would have to pass a law to make that law.
So, pass a law to make that law, but don't pass a law to make that he can just remove people at will.
Let's see, that's the slippery slope we're talking about. If they pass it in this circumstance, what's going to happen when we get another governor that's like Ann Richards down the road? Eventually, it's going to happen.
Yep.
And they're going to take that, because it's now precedent, right? They're going to take that and say any governor that disagrees with me over whatever is going to be removed. It's just something that should never happen.
Well, why have elections? Why have elections? Why isn't the governor then just appointing them if he's only going to want people in there that do what he wants?
Yeah, exactly. Because then they're serving at the whim of the state executive branch. And you might as well be appointed at that juncture.
Right. The will of the people is irrelevant at that point. So,
well, the state constitution allows some allowance for removal of elected officials, but here's a caveat here. If I'm saying a caveat. Anyway, they have to be found by a jury to be incompetent.
I think that's what I asked you. I mean, is there any due process with this, or is it just him saying, "No, you're out, you're out, you're out"? There needs to be a due process. That's like that's the cornerstone of the American way.
Well, they're saying it's incompetent or for any official misconduct, and of course now we're going to be into definitions of what is. This could drag out forever. I mean, there's no way that they could get this accomplished,
There's no way that they're going to get a jury in Travis County.
Exactly, Paul.
To go against the sheriff. I mean,
exactly.
they're in lockstep politically. It's just not going to happen.
Which is why he wants to be able to remove her, because he knows that county won't do it.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is the same county that brought the trumped-up charges against Rick Perry a few years ago. I can't remember exactly what the issue was, campaign finance or something.
Mm-hmm.
They drug it out for years, just tried to completely derail everything he did. It was eventually just, dismissed.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was dismissed with prejudice.
Yes, it absolutely was.
They couldn't even bring it up again. I mean, it was so ridiculous. But, the average voter in Travis County that's going to be in a jury pool is going to be highly supportive of their sheriff.
Right.
So, that's exactly right. You're not going to – all it takes is one, right, to to dissent.
Exactly. Yep.
So they'll find that one. Well, here's what she says she will do. She says, this is the sheriff, Hernandez. She says that she will honor ICE detainers only in cases in which a suspect's been charged with capital murder, aggravated sexual assault, or human smuggling, or if federal agents get a court order or an arrest warrant. Now, here's the issue. There's some things left out here, like drug smuggling.
That was going to be my first question. What about drugs?
DWIs. That was a big issue. What, Paul?
That was Sparky.
Sorry, I heard drugs and got excited.
Yeah, he was all like panting over here for the drugs.
Well, anyway, it's a battle that I think is going to be wasting some time and money. I understand, and I sympathize with the governor trying to deal with this, but sometimes you just have to realize some of these elected officials are crazier than a road lizard, and you don't know what they're going to do.
Is this by chance? Is this by chance the same area that keeps electing Sheila Jackson Lee?
She's Houston.
She's Houston.
Yeah.
We can't live there. Oh God.
Yep.
Ooh.
Scratch that one.
You just have to make sure you're in the right district.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So in New Hampshire, the entire state, there are only 2 districts. So I forgot that Houston's probably split up into multiple.
Houston's probably got like 14 or 15 at least. Okay.
Yeah, we've got the 2.
Well, I guess shifting gears, we'll give Governor Abbott our best wishes, and I'm going to tell him that I hope he's not successful. Although the Republicans indicate that they're more than willing to write that law, but you don't have to be smart to get to Austin. You just have to have somebody that has money. But
Skipper, our good buddy Joe Strauss is not going to let that happen. Speaker of the Texas House.
So that's probably true.
It's not even going to get on the agenda.
It'll die in the calendar committee.
It will.
We don't have time. Well, there's one other story I thought was kind of interesting, and I mentioned it in Hatch's show. In 2015, the FBI had a great idea. They actually got some hackers, and they seized control and then monitored a child pornography website on the dark web. And it's called Playpen, and they had it for about 2 weeks. They managed to get, I think, 180 people grounded up over this thing, but it's like 100,000 images of children went through that site while they had. In fact, as a matter of fact, if you read the headlines, the site became more efficient and more people went there after the FBI took it over than they had before. Now, tens of thousands of images of child pornography uploaded. Nobody asked the parents of those kids, if it was okay to use their kids' pictures as bait. And I just want to throw it out here. I know there's 2 sides to this.
When I saw this story come across show notes, I'm looking at it going, oh, come on. Skipper's got to be sort of wrong here in some fashion. They must have put up
you always go there.
A dummy site.
He does it with me too.
with maybe they put up some things that weren't actually anything, but they were just trying to track people and bait them into doing this. And then you throw in, yes, they in fact distributed and became more efficient at distributing actual images to the tune of 100,000 images.
It gets worse because I went back a little further.
Yeah.
Going back to November 12th, 2016, new court documents obtained by the UCLA include FBI affidavit describing the agency's plan to run 23 child pornography sites on the so-called dark web.
Good God.
Yeah. They were going to go with the Tor system, and yeah.
That's got to be a significant proportion of all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any idea how many child porn sites there are. It makes me sick to even know that they exist. But, yeah, 23 of them.
Holy smokes.
It could be your kid on there. And the thing about it is you don't know that because you don't know who managed to hack into your kid's computer camera. I mean, I know y'all take precautions. Most people don't, and took pictures. And they could be out there, and there's a little note here. I can't, unfortunately, I have quotation marks, and then I didn't reference who said what, but it says Congress has long recognized that each viewing of child pornography re-victimizes a child.
Yep. Yeah, it does.
Yep.
So, all right, so I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. And obviously, nobody in this crew is going to.
It's not even like they were bagging up fake Coke and selling it on the street and harassing people for buying the fake Coke. They were distributing the real shebang.
Yeah.
The federal government's a criminal enterprise.
They got 180 people.
Oh, wow.
nationwide.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and how many kids were victimized?
And said they've had 49 children were identified and rescued from abuse. Now, okay, I'll go with that. But they could have done that without doing the other stuff, right?
Right. They didn't need to distribute the porn to make that happen.
Right.
I mean,
I'm having a hard time playing devil's advocate on this one.
It's just there's no justification, and apparently several judges had initially made the warrants, and they were trying to get warrants, and several judges said, "No, you can't do that. You really can't do that."
It's Fast and Furious,
and they finally got somebody to do it, and the UCLA pounced on it.
Fast and Furious and the same issue because. Yeah. What was the big issue with Fast and Furious? They couldn't get that. They couldn't get those guns back. And once they were out there, well, they can't get those pictures back. They're still recirculating.
Mm-hmm.
They're still on people's computers. 100,000 people accessed this site and traded pictures. Those pictures are out there forever. They're somewhere. They're in wherever people put things like that.
Yep.
That's where they are. They're not going to ever catch all those people.
Well, and if they know there's 100,000 out there, why do we only have 180 arrests coming out of this? Come on.
Right. That's another good point. That's probably the pivotal point.
If you can't count something, you can't manage it. So they've counted it, so they should be able to manage it. They can track those IP addresses. I know there's ways to, kind of get around that.
It's dark web, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
they got some of them.
Yeah, there's it just I don't know. It's almost Pizzagate-ish to me.
Mm.
You know what the issue that has them high centered on prosecutions is the fact that something Angie kind of touched on. They got one warrant. They got a judge and got a single warrant to hack into the computers of anyone that came to that website.
Yep.
And which is a whole different argument now that let's for example take child pornography out of the subject matter and call it anything.
Yep.
And you have one warrant. Now that gives them access, and that's just unprecedented. But it is a precedent now that it's happened. If there's no pushback on this, so
yeah, when you're shopping this stuff at secret NSA courts and things that have gag orders and that sort of thing, the precedents really doesn't make a difference.
Well, the ACL,
they're going to do what they will.
The ACLU said they were paying close attention because there was imminent change to the relevant rules that would relax the jurisdictional limits on warrants for remote searches. Google voiced opposition to this to the change, saying it threatened to undermine the privacy rights of computer security for Internet users. And this is going back to 2015, prior to Obama signing away control of the Internet, or just sort of giving away control of the Internet. How is that going to change on the international level with the changes on the Internet? Sparky?
Well, that's a good question.
It's an exponential growth in complexity, and I would speculate that every time we nail down one violation of our rights, they will find another new and creative way of getting around that. And to give you an example, like you were saying, with the Internet domain name system being given away, you could have a situation. What, you're shaking your head now?
I'm reading, reading Thirsty Warriors.
You could have a situation now where the government, if they're being told something by a third party as a witness, that's not considered a search. So if a foreign body is now doing the searches for them and then reporting back to them on their behalf, that's a circumvention of our entire constitutional rights onto itself. So every time we nail them down on one thing, they find a new creative way of getting around it. And this is a case. What are we looking at? Thirsty Warriors say not seeing the slippery slope argument against the one warrant against all IP accessing the child porn site. Isn't there a positive argument? Yeah, there is a positive argument for it. But like Skipper was saying, let's remove the subject matter away and replace it with something much more much more innocuous. Maybe not legal, but innocuous. So
You've talked about this 100 times. You start off with something that everybody agrees is vile and repugnant, and then you just weasel your way into just basic stuff.
Right.
You know?
Once you set the precedent, you get it across there.
Right.
So what if they decide that one warrant on every computer that visits a site that was in an advertisement that says free Star Wars movie, click here? The Star Wars movie is illegal to download if it's, as a copyrighted thing, but because they have a warrant for everybody that visits the site.
Whether they downloaded it or not, they just went there.
So, yeah, there is a slippery slope argument to be made.
My concern is, I think it's what you were already saying, Angel, but my concern about this is I live in Texas, and I guess that's probably obvious by now, but we had a thing called Branch Davidian massacre down here.
Yeah, we know.
and what was that based on? What was the justification for going in there? Not just for going in the first time, but for going in at the very end with tear gas and tanks and everything. It was child abuse. Child abuse, sexual abuse of children. That's what you saw on all the all the news sites.
Sure.
Koresh is a child abuser. We're there. Janet Reno said we went in to save the children. Well, that didn't work out. But here's the thing: that was used. Who can argue with that? Oh gosh, nobody wants kids to be.
It's always about the children,
right? And it starts there. Mm-hmm. And now, Thirsty Warrior saying, okay, it's a felony versus a civil offense.
No, it is not. It is a felony versus a felony offense. Mm-hmm. Copyright infringement is a felony offense. And it's not about felony versus civil. It's about, does the government have the authority based upon the severity of the case to violate constitutional rights? That's
hang in there, Thirsty Warrior. You're only dissenting voice.
I encourage you to argue with me. I love arguing. But
yes, he does. Please argue with him so I don't have to.
It's various shades of felony. I mean, you remember when VHS, at the beginning of every VHS movie, you got that FBI warning. If you distribute this is a felony, and it can lead to a $100,000 fine. Yes.
I used to make people leave the room,
I can't watch this with you.
I'm sorry. I rented this movie. Get the heck out. Well, Thirsty Warrior, I understand what you're trying to say. Isn't there some way to do this where we can parse this out and be able to take care of?
Yes, there is.
Child molesters and at the same time leave the rest of our rights intact. I don't know. I'm not bright enough to figure that out. Other than just drawing a line in the sand and saying, well, you really don't have a right. You don't have a right to do that. But I don't know. Anybody else got any ideas how they could have proceeded?
I think the first step is to get rid of these blanket warrants.
Yeah.
They arrested 180 people. Well, they should have named that 180.
Sure.
And put them on. Put them on notice.
Perp walks. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that is, at least protecting privacy, to some degree for everybody else. I mean, the blanket warrants they are such an extreme abuse and so counter to the Constitution in my mind that, that's really the first thing that needs to go. That's the first step to solving this.
I know how I would have done it. That would have kept it constitutional, which is, I would have made it such that the perpetrator thought they were downloading one thing when in fact they were downloading another thing that then phoned home, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so everybody's computer who phoned home, you automatically get a warrant for each one of those individually, and that would cover all the bases. You're not hacking their computer; they're asking for the data, and then they're executing that data, and that data is phoning home. That's
why they didn't do that though. They wanted a larger catchment area. They wanted something to give that person that they would want to distribute. So if they didn't actually end up with anything, in other words, you sent them something that was a picture of a catfish instead of a kid, yet they clicked on the kid.
Right.
You got him. You can show intent. but they're not going to send that cat picture of a catfish to all their porn buddies.
No, you're absolutely correct. But here's my point: is if you can show probable cause for the warrant to search their machine, even if it is remotely, the likelihood is this ain't the first time this guy's done that.
Yeah, that's a good point. They'd already have contacts.
They would already have something on their machine that would incriminate them to the point where you could arrest them.
And maybe others.
And maybe others, correct.
Right. Okay, well, let's switch because we got a little bit. Angela, did you have one of your special things for tonight? I didn't think to ask you.
I had one and I didn't bring it with me, and I don't remember what it was.
Right.
I was like, so I totally spaced. Well, I do have something kind of cool with my little Cathedral of the Pines wedding giveaway package. I've seemed to have secured a what is it? The reception hall. I seem to have secured a reception hall, and one of the morning talk show people who is going to interview the winning couple, when we announce it on February 14th, Valentine's Day. He's going to interview them in the morning, and he's talking about getting a high-level general to call in and congratulate them.
Wow.
Like super high level, like, internationally known name person.
Is it Barack Obama?
He's not a general.
Oh.
He's a I gotta stop.
Is it Margaret Thatcher?
You can't give us a name, I guess. Is it not? It's not.
Well, it's not confirmed, and I don't want to I don't want to put it out there and then jinx myself. But if it were in the early 90s, it would be Schwarzkopf level.
Is it Schwarzkopf?
No.
Oh.
Must be Patton.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously. You gave it away, Paul. What the hell?
They're digging
Sorry.
up right now.
Spirit call.
Yeah. Well, that is good news, though. Have you started getting more applicants in?
We actually got a total of 6.
Good.
Which we only needed 3. And here's the thing, though, I hadn't even considered. We got a couple of them, 2 of them. One of them, I can't tell if they're actually married or not. But 2 of them are definitely already married. But they didn't have a ceremony. So they're like married with 4 kids. And it didn't even occur to me that would be one of the sort of somebody would apply if they were already married. We were thinking newlyweds. So so I'll have to see how we like that for next year. So anyway, hadn't even considered that.
That's such a cool thing you're doing. Hey, I had something for all you single people, or those of you who are about to be single.
Sparky.
Those of you who don't yet take out their trash. Sparky, I didn't want it to come out on radio. They've got a new dating app. Now you're going to love this, Angie. After all the stuff you've gone through online with people, it's called Hater, Hater. It's a dating app that helps people find love based on what they both hate.
Oh.
Now, yeah, it's like a 2000. I mean, you can answer, I guess, as many questions as you want to, but the questions are, what do you hate? And then there's this little slider, I guess, and you can say camping. Over
absolutely
here,
hate camping. I don't see the point in that.
There you go. And it's the only app of its kind.
She hates me. And here I am.
I was going to say, though, here's the problem. Honestly, there's like 2 things we like that like mutually like. Can you think of anything that we actually like mutually?
Mutually?
Yeah. Riley.
Yeah, we like Riley.
So we like our kids. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
we hate winter.
Goes on a plus side. You hate winter. There you go. Well, so you make a lot of decisions based on what you hate. But
Yeah,
I thought it was
true.
kind of interesting. They said it's rooted in research, and that always kind of makes me chuckle. But anyway, it's that people are more inclined to bond through shared negative opinions than they are through shared likes. Paul, what do you think? Does that make any sense to you?
Well, yeah, my marriage is based on shared negativity.
Yeah.
So
On hate?
yeah, it makes perfect sense to me.
I'm with you.
You know,
Everything. My whole universe is based on what I hate. So yeah.
I mean, if hating avocado is what gets you together, why not?
Yeah, but did you know that when you and your bride to be were just getting to know one another? Did you know is that what you people talk about on dates now?
Well,
what do you think about this? I hate it.
Yeah, we were pre-internet, but so we didn't have the joys of all that.
Dates.
But We kind of did get together on the. Oh man, I sure don't like that. Well, I don't like that either. So, I think we found a mutual passion for our dislikes in a lot of ways.
Well, there you go. I guess it works.
I wonder. I'm trying to imagine this setting in a social setting. A couple people that I guess now people arrange to meet over the internet, but say a chance meeting at a bar. I mean, that's kind of the way it used to be done. And not telling anything about my life, but I'm just saying, and those people and stuff like that.
You're on Tinder, you are.
So I just can't. Mostly you talk about positive stuff. I would think. You want to give them something positive about you, and you want that other person to go, yeah. I like walks in the sunset, and
I'm not a Playboy centerfold.
Yes, you are.
I like long walks on the beach.
No, you don't.
No, I really, really don't. I hate sand.
I'm tempted to get on there. I'd have to get my wife's permission, but I'm tempted to get on there. In fact, I think I'll ask her to get on there too, and we'll fill these things out and see if we're compatible.
See if you get compatible. Yeah, that would be fine. Let's do that and report back next week.
Yeah, I might, with whatever's left of me, I guess.
What do you mean you don't like my cooking?
Yeah, I hate it. Well, we've already gone through the fact I hate stew. We've already had that discussion recently.
Really?
I'm just, I grew up hating anything that had vegetables in it. That limits a lot of things except tacos. So that's the way I guess. Well, I just thought that was kind of interesting. And next week, I guess because we didn't get to some of this stuff, we'll be able to talk maybe about those poor 1%ers in Silicon Valley. Now, Sparky, you said, and a little bit of a prelude, we got a couple minutes left here. You said you thought that those people had been, they'd been prepping for a long time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Silicon Valley has been prepping doomsday bunkers since the 2008, even further back than that. They've been buying plots of land in remote places, and they will make their millions in Silicon Valley, retire, and live like a hermit up in North Dakota.
But they also have those designer underground bunkers.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're like little McMansions underground.
Yeah, they're cool. So they'll buy nuclear silos. They have been prepping for a long time. They are prepping for a different reason now, and it's a different group of people that are newly learning about prepping. But Silicon Valley is no stranger to the whole prepper movement. You've got some people who are really into it.
No, what was there? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One of them, I can't remember which one. Actually, a few years ago, was actually talking about building some kind of a floating city that they could take out to international waters.
Yeah, there was actually a legitimate plan and fundraising started to build a super boat, I guess you could say, a super tanker, and they were going to build a entire community that would, float around at half a mile an hour, and you would buy into this boat for however much money it was, and every month you would be in a different location. It was a cool concept, but I don't know how far it got.
We got Dwight's on chat. He says there's just nothing like a designer underground bunker. I know I like mine, Dwight. It's called a tornado shelter here in Texas. It's got a lot of canned goods in there.
Welcome to the show at the very end, Dwight, by the way.
Yeah, Dwight. Glad you came. And well, it's been a great show. As I always enjoyed it with everyone. And I guess, Sparky, we must be getting pretty close according to the sweeping second hand.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to hit that play button.
Next week, maybe we'll pick up and talk about this whole idea about jobs lost, because every week I run into articles about
you do. We have to cover
more people losing jobs. And porn stars, I mean, that's just ridiculous, right?
I just don't see how that's going to fly.
How are you going to retrain a porn star? That's what I want to know.
They have no other skills.
I'm staying out of that one.
Yeah, there you go. Well, come back next week. Enjoyed it, and hope everybody has a great week ahead of them.
All right, good night, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
If you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan.
Saddam Hussein has gone to elaborate lengths.
This is the TK Radio Network.